Picture a room full of people who all started with the same salary, same city, same year, same company. 10 years later, some of them are earning twice what they started with, some are earning 3 times, and a few are still making almost exactly what they made on day one. What changed? The work didn't get harder. The economy wasn't that different. The answer has almost nothing to do with talent, and almost everything to do with a force so invisible most people never name it. That force is called your wage anchor, and it was set before you even knew what a salary was. Think about the first number someone ever told you a job was worth. Maybe it was a parent describing what they earned. Maybe it was a job listing you found at 19. Maybe it was the first offer you accepted because you were just grateful anyone wanted you. Whatever that number was, your brain did something powerful with it. It stored it. It used it as a reference point for every financial decision that came after. Psychologists call this anchoring. Daniel Kahneman, the Nobel Prize-winning behavioral economist, spent decades studying how a single number can reshape every judgment a person makes afterward, even when that number is completely arbitrary. In one famous experiment, he showed that people's estimates of completely unrelated facts were dramatically pulled toward a random number they had seen moments before. Your salary history is not random, but it works exactly the same way. The first number sets the range you believe is possible for you.
Here is where it gets strange. You might know intellectually that you deserve more. You might read the data. You might see the job listings. But when it comes time to negotiate, something pulls you back toward that original anchor. That pull is not weakness. It is your brain doing what it was built to do. It is trying to protect you from the uncertainty of the unknown, and in doing so, it quietly limits the ceiling on your financial life. Consider 2 people. Call them Maya and David. They graduate from the same program in the same year with nearly identical credentials. Maya gets her first offer at $48,000. She negotiates it up to $52,000. David gets his first offer at $62,000. He does not negotiate at all. He accepts immediately. A year later, both get a standard 5% raise. Maya earns $54,600. David earns $65,100. The gap is already over $10,000 a year. Compounded over a decade, with promotions and raises each building on the prior year's base, that gap becomes staggering. Not because of skill, not because of effort, because of where the anchor was placed on day one. Adam Smith wrote about how labor markets were shaped by something he called the natural price of work. He meant the level wages tend to settle around based on what workers and employers both expect as fair. But what determines expectations? Expectations are built on what people around you earn, what you have earned before, and what you have been told your work is worth. The anchor is not just personal, it is social. It is the invisible agreement between you and every institution that has ever paid you. This is why geographic wage gaps are so persistent. Economists have studied workers who move from low-wage cities to high-wage cities and found something counterintuitive. Even when those workers take on the same roles as local candidates, they often earn less, sometimes for years. The reason is partly that employers use salary history to set offers, but it is also that workers who grew up in lower-wage environments often anchor themselves lower. They ask for less because less feels like the right number. The anchor moved with them. Richard Thaler, another behavioral economist who won the Nobel Prize, studied how people respond to pay structures and framing. His research showed that what people accept as fair compensation is not based on objective value, but on comparison. You judge your salary against what you made before, against what your colleagues make, against what you expected. Change the comparison point, and you change what feels acceptable. This is not a quirk. It is the architecture of how human judgment works. And financial institutions, employers, and even salary negotiation norms are all built around that architecture. Now consider what happens when someone breaks the anchor, when someone decides, deliberately, to reset the reference point.
There is a pattern in the careers of people who make large income leaps. It rarely happens inside the same company, through the same path, in a straight line. It almost always happens at a break point, a new industry, a new city, a new role they had never done before, a negotiation where they named a number that felt almost uncomfortable to say out loud. Warren Buffett has talked about how important it is to be in the right game, not just to play the game well. The invisible force limiting your earnings is not competition. It is the frame around the playing field. Step outside the frame, and the anchor loses its grip. But here is what most people do instead.
They optimize inside the anchor. They work harder inside the existing structure. They chase small raises, small promotions, incremental improvements, all of which are valuable, none of which fundamentally reset the number. The economist Robert Frank wrote about what he called positional competition, the tendency to compete for relative status within a fixed hierarchy rather than questioning whether the hierarchy itself is the right one to be climbing. You could win the competition and still be trapped inside a ceiling you never examined. So how does someone actually move the anchor? The research points to 3 consistent patterns. First, concrete market data, not what you feel you are worth, not what would make you comfortable, what the external market is actually paying for your skills right now. Sites like Glassdoor and LinkedIn salary data exist. Industry surveys exist. The number is findable. Most people do not look because finding it creates a new anchor, and sometimes that new anchor is higher than what they are comfortable asking for. Discomfort is the first sign the old anchor is being challenged.
Second, framing the ask around value delivered, not tenure served. The implicit logic most people bring to a salary conversation is time-based. They have been there 2 years. They have been loyal. They have worked hard. Employers do not price loyalty the way employers think they do. Employers price outcomes. The shift from asking based on what you are owed to asking based on what you will produce creates an entirely different conversation. It is the difference between negotiating as a supplier and negotiating as a vendor. Third, and most uncomfortable, saying numbers out loud before they feel safe. Peter Lynch, the legendary fund manager who ran Fidelity's Magellan Fund, often talked about the paralysis that comes from waiting for certainty before acting. In investing, he noticed that people would delay buying a stock until it was obvious to everyone, at which point the opportunity had mostly passed. Salary negotiation works the same way. The moment it feels completely safe to name a higher number is usually the moment that number is already behind the market. The anchor only breaks when you are willing to say something before it feels fully justified. Here is what this means for you right now. Think about the last time you were offered a job, a contract, a rate, or a raise. Think about the first number that appeared. Did you question it? Did you research it? Or did you accept it as approximately right because it was close to what you already had? That moment, repeated across every financial negotiation in your life, is the invisible force. Not your skills, not the economy, not luck. The anchor you carried in and the one you accepted on the way out.
The strange truth is that the financial ceiling on most people's lives is not built by the market. It is built by a number they heard years ago and never consciously chose to update. The good news is that anchors are not permanent. They are mental structures. They can be replaced, but only if you first notice the one that is already there. You checked your salary today and wondered if it was what you were worth. The strange part is that the answer is not what you know or what you can do. It is the number you decide to believe about yourself before you knew any better. And unlike most things in finance, that is one number you actually have the power to change.